I never believed in ghosts. I thought they were just stories people told to scare themselves. But the very first night I moved into that old, cheap apartment, something happened that I can't explain. The air smelled of damp wood, heavy like the walls had soaked up every storm for years. The floor groaned beneath me as I set down my suitcase, and the silence pressed so tight against my ears that I could hear my own heartbeat. I told myself it's just an old building, nothing more. The place was small, one bedroom, a cracked window that never fully closed, and wallpaper peeling in long strips like old skin. I didn't care. I just needed a roof over my head. The landlord had warned me the last tenant left in a hurry. I figured it was about money. People don't run because of shadows, at least that's what I thought. I turned off the light and lay on the thin mattress. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, slow, dragging, across the wooden floor, directly above me, except I was on the top floor. The steps stopped. I held my breath, straining to listen. The silence was so sharp it almost rang in my ears, and then a breath, low, uneven, right beside me. I bolted upright, flicked the light on, nothing. Just the empty room. My suitcase by the door, the cracked window rattling softly in the wind. I laughed nervously, told myself it had to be in my head. Maybe the pipes or neighbors through the walls, anything but what it felt like. But as I lay back down, forcing my eyes shut, I noticed something new. The floorboards, just inches from my bed, were bending, slowly, as if someone invisible was standing right there. After that first night, I told myself it was nothing. Old buildings creak, shadows play tricks. I tried to believe it, but the second night, something else happened. I was walking back from the stairwell, the dim yellow bulbs buzzing above me. The hallway stretched out long and narrow, lined with doors that all looked the same. The kind of hallway that made you feel like you were walking inside a throat. Halfway down, I froze. At the very end of the corridor, someone was standing there, a tall figure, thin, motionless. Too far to see details, just a dark shape against the flickering light. My stomach dropped. I waited for them to move, to step forward, to wave. Anything that would make them human. But they didn't. They just stood there, still as stone, facing me. Hello? My voice cracked in the silence. No answer. I blinked, and for a split second I thought the figure was closer than before. Just by an inch, but enough to make the hallway feel shorter. The lights above flickered, buzzing louder. I forced myself to walk, fast, eyes locked on my door. My keys shook in my hand as I jammed them into the lock, refusing to look back. And the moment I slammed the door shut, I heard it, a single heavy footstep. Right outside. The knock outside my door never came, just that single heavy footstep, and then silence. I didn't sleep much that night. Every sound, the pipes, the wind through the cracked window made me jump. By morning, I almost convinced myself it was stress, nerves, but later that day, something happened that shattered any excuse I could make. It started in the bathroom. The mirror above the sink was old, spotted with age. I leaned in to splash water on my face, and for just a second, I saw someone behind me, a tall figure. Standing in the corner, I spun around. Nothing. Just peeling wallpaper and the rusty shower curtain swaying slightly. My chest tightened. I told myself it was imagination, a trick of the light. But when I looked back at the mirror, I froze. A crack had appeared, thin at first, like a scratch running down the glass. And then right before my eyes it spread, branching, splitting into jagged lines. The sound was sharp, like ice breaking. I stumbled back, heart hammering. In the fractured reflection, I saw myself, but not exactly. My face was there, pale and wide-eyed, but in one of the broken shards, just one. I wasn't alone. A second face, dark, hollow-eyed, standing over my shoulder, smiling. I blinked and the crack stopped spreading. The other face was gone. Just me again, and a broken mirror. But deep inside I knew. I hadn't imagined it. Something was in that room with me, and it wanted me to see it. After the mirror cracked, I couldn't bring myself to use the bathroom again that night. I left the light on and shut the door, pretending that would keep whatever I saw on the other side. But the apartment had other plans. Buried in the corner of the living room was an old radio. Dusty, heavy, the kind with big dials that hadn't worked in years. I didn't remember seeing it when I moved in. Around midnight, just as I was drifting off, the static started. A low hiss, faint at first, then louder, like someone was turning the dial, searching for a station. I sat up, staring into the dark. The radio's red light flickered on by itself. The static cut, and a voice whispered through. It wasn't music. It wasn't a broadcast. It was a voice. My name, whispered, slowly, repeated, over and over. I froze. My mouth went dry. Who's there? I whispered back, my voice trembling. The radio crackled. And then the voice said something else, so faint, I had to lean in, ear inches from the speaker. Don't look at the mirror again. My skin went cold. I yanked the plug from the wall, but the voice didn't stop. The radio kept hissing, whispering, my name tangled with words I couldn't understand. And then, silence. No static, no voice. The red light blinked off, but in the reflection of the black radio dial, I could swear I saw it again. That same hollow-eyed face, smiling. After the radio went silent, I couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was watching me. Every time I turned off the lights, I caught myself glancing at the shadows in the corners, waiting for them to move. A few nights later, I finally saw it, not inside my apartment. Across from it, through the cracked window in my living room, I noticed a glow, the faint light of another window directly opposite mine. At first, I thought nothing of it, but then I realized someone was standing there, a figure, perfectly still, looking straight into my window, straight at me. I froze where I stood. The room felt smaller, the air thick as if I couldn't take a full breath. The figure didn't wave, didn't move, just stared. I tried to convince myself it was just a neighbor, maybe curious. But when I asked the building manager the next day, his face went pale. That apartment? It's been empty for years. No one's lived there since. He trailed off, eyes darting away. That night I checked again, and there it was, the figure, standing by the window, watching. Only this time, it raised its hand. Not to wave, to point right at me. After that night, I avoided the window. I kept the curtains drawn tight, but even then, I swore I could feel eyes pressing against the glass, burning through the fabric. That's when the letters started. It was subtle at first. A folded envelope slipped into my mailbox, no return address. Just my name, written in shaky handwriting. Inside, one line, "Get out while you still can." I laughed nervously, convinced it was some kind of prank. But then came the second letter, and the third. Each one slipped in quietly, no stamps, no postmarks, like they'd been placed there by hand. The messages grew stranger. Please, warnings, scribbled in ink that sometimes smeared like it hadn't even tried. It knows your name. Don't answer the door at night. Stop looking at the windows. By the fifth letter, something made my stomach turn. The handwriting looked familiar. I spread the notes across my table, tracing the jagged strokes, the uneven curves. My heart sank. It was my handwriting, messier, frantic, but mine all the same. I dropped the letters like they burned. How could that be? I hadn't written them, had I? That night I woke to the sound of paper sliding under my door. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to touch it. But curiosity won. I bent down, picked up the envelope, and slowly pulled it open. Inside was just one sentence written in the same trembling hand. Stop pretending you don't remember. And at the bottom was my signature. I didn't sleep after that last letter. How could I, with my own signature staring back at me? I sat in the dark, heart racing, listening for the sound of paper sliding across the floor again. But instead, I heard something else. It was faint at first. 3 soft knocks, knock, knock, knock. I froze, checked the clock. 3 a.m. exactly. The knocks came from inside the wall, right behind my bed. I pressed my ear against the plaster, holding my breath. Silence. Just as I was about to pull away, 3 more knocks. Louder this time. Knock, 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 I whispered. Hello? For a moment, nothing. And then, 3 knocks again, mimicking my rhythm like something was answering me. My skin crawled. I grabbed a broomstick and pounded against the wall. Stop it, I shouted, my voice shaking. The response came instantly. Knock, 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 knock. Rapid. Furious. The wall shuddered as if something inside was clawing to get out. Then, just as suddenly, silence. I backed away, trembling, gripping the broom like a weapon. The apartment was still heavy, as though it was holding its breath. and then from the other side of the room. 3 knocks, this time from inside the closet. After the knocking in the closet, I couldn't bring myself to open the door. I sat awake till dawn, staring at it, waiting for the handle to turn on its own. It never did. But the silence that followed was worse, like whatever was inside had decided to wait. For me. The next evening my phone rang. I almost jumped out of my skin because no one ever called me that late. The screen lit up with a name that made my chest tighten. It was my brother. Except my brother has been dead for 2 years. My hands shook as I answered.
Hello?
At first only static, then a familiar voice, thin and trembling like it was traveling across miles of broken wires. Get out. Please, get out of that apartment. I couldn't breathe. Who is this? How do you have his number? The voice cracked, breaking into sobs. It's me. You don't understand. It knows you now. Once it knows your name. The call cut off. Just static. I stared at the phone, my throat dry. No call log, no number. Just a blank screen as if the call had never happened. But the words clung to me like frost. It knows your name. And that night, when I finally forced myself to lie down, I heard it. A whisper in the dark. My name, spoken slowly, from the closet. After the call, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had marked me. The way it whispered my name in the dark. Like it wasn't testing me anymore. It was claiming me. I tried to distract myself during the day, anything to prove I still had control. I even pulled out my phone, scrolling through old pictures, just to remind myself of normal life. Friends, family, places I'd been before all this started. But then I noticed something. One of the photos had changed. At first it was subtle, just a shadow in the background of a picture I'd taken weeks ago. A shadow shaped like a person, standing in a doorway that should have been empty. My stomach turned cold. I swiped to the next photo, and the shadow was there again. Closer this time. I kept scrolling, my hands sweating, breath short. With every new picture, it appeared again and again, a tall, hollow shape edging nearer until finally, the last photo, it was taken in my apartment. A picture I didn't even remember capturing, and in it, the figure wasn't in the background anymore, it was right behind me. The worst part? The face was no longer a blur. It was clear and it looked exactly like me, only smiling wider than I ever could. After the photos, I couldn't stay calm anymore. I thought maybe if I left the apartment for a while, cleared my head, I'd realize it was all in my mind. So that night I decided to step out. Just walk down the hallway, breathe, remind myself the world outside my door still existed. But the hallway wasn't the same. The buzzing yellow lights felt dimmer, stretched farther apart. My footsteps echoed too long, like the walls had moved. I walked faster. My door behind me should have been just a few steps away. But when I turned, the hall stretched back, endless. Every door looked the same. Identical numbers. Identical locks. I started to panic. My breath came short, heart hammering. The further I walked, the more the air grew heavy, thick, like I was sinking underwater. And then I saw it. At the very end of the hall, a figure, tall, still, exactly where it had been that night before. I stopped. My knees locked, the buzzing lights above me flickered one by one, going dark, until only the bulb above my head still glowed, and in that moment, I realized the figure wasn't waiting at the end of the hallway anymore. It was standing just a few steps in front of me, closer than it had ever been. I don't remember how I got back into my apartment that night. One moment the figure was in front of me, the next, I was slamming the door shut, gasping like I'd been underwater too long. I thought maybe I'd lost my mind. Maybe none of it was real, but then I found the notebook. It was buried in the bottom drawer of the old desk under a pile of dust and forgotten papers. The cover was cracked, the pages yellowed, edges curled with age. At first I thought it was just a journal from some tenant who'd lived here before me. But when I opened it, my blood went cold. The handwriting, I recognized it. The same jagged letters as the notes in my mailbox. I flipped through page after page. Each entry described things I'd seen. The footsteps above me, the figure in the hallway, the radio whispering my name. Word for word, as if someone had been recording my nights before they even happened. And then, the final page. The words were scrawled so violently the pen nearly tore the paper. If you're reading this, it already chose you. My hand shook as I dropped the notebook. my breath shallow. The sound that followed made my blood freeze. From somewhere deep in the apartment, beneath the floorboards maybe, I heard it. A laugh. Low. Familiar. My laugh. After I found the journal, I couldn't bring myself to touch it again. I shoved it back into the drawer, slammed it shut, and swore I'd never open it. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. That night, the bathroom light flicked on by itself. A faint glow leaked under the door, soft but steady. I told myself it was a bad bulb, faulty wiring. But then I heard it, the faint scrape of glass like nails dragging across a window pane. My stomach twisted. I pushed the bathroom door open. The cracked mirror above the sink was glowing faintly in the light. And across its fractured surface, fresh scratches were spreading. Not random. Letters. One by one, they carved themselves into the glass, the sound sharp, unbearable, until a word formed in jagged lines, my name. I staggered back, choking on my own breath. The scratches didn't stop. Below my name, more words began to appear. You belong here. The glass shuddered, splintering wider, shards trembling like they might explode outward. And in one of the broken fragments, I saw it, not just the hollow-eyed face. Its lips moved, whispering, and though no sound came from the glass, I heard the words clear as day. Right behind me, say my name. I spun around. The bathroom was empty, but on the mirror under my name, fresh letters kept carving themselves in. This time, they didn't stop. They were spelling something else, a name I didn't recognize. I don't remember falling asleep. One moment I was staring at the mirror, the letters still carving themselves into the glass. The next I was standing in my apartment, but it wasn't the same. The air was thick with the smell of smoke and candle wax. My small living room was lit up by dozens of flickering flames. And around my table, they sat, a crowd of people I didn't recognize. Pale faces, dark eyes, silent. They didn't eat, though the table was set with plates, glasses, silverware polished so bright it hurt to look. They just stared at me, waiting. I opened my mouth, but no sound came. My throat felt sealed shut. Then one by one, they raised their glasses, and in perfect unison they whispered a name, not mine, the name that had been carving itself into the mirror. The sound made the room spin like my head was full of static. I clapped my hands over my ears, but the whispers seeped through my fingers, growing louder until the candles flickered violently, shadows stretching across the walls like claws, and then I woke up. Or at least, I thought I did, because when I stumbled into the living room gasping for air, the table was set, plates, glasses, silverware, exactly as it had been in the dream. Only this time, there was one extra seat pulled out waiting for me. After the night of the dinner table, I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed down to the building office the next morning, gripping the spare key the landlord had given me, demanding answers. The manager looked up, startled by my pale face and shaking hands. "You okay?" he asked. "No," I snapped. "What happened in my apartment? Who lived there before me?" His expression changed. The color drained from his face. He shut the office door, lowered his voice. "You weren't supposed to stay long enough to ask that." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" He hesitated, then pulled out an old folder from the bottom drawer. Newspaper clippings, photos, police reports, tenant after tenant. People who had lived in my unit. Every one of them disappeared. Some vanished without a trace. Others were found dead under strange circumstances. But the pattern was the same. Always the same apartment. Always the same whispers. He shoved the folder into my hands. "That place doesn't want people, it keeps them." I stared at the pages, my blood freezing. The last report was only a year old. The victim's name scrawled in black ink at the bottom, and it was the same name that had been carving itself into my mirror. The manager grabbed my arm. His grip was desperate, almost painful. "You need to leave, now, before it finishes with you." But when I stumbled back upstairs, clutching the folder, my door was already open, and from the darkness inside, I heard chairs scraping across the floor, like the table was being set again. The folder slipped from my hands as I stepped into the apartment. The door closed behind me with a heavy thud, though I hadn't touched it. Inside, the air was thick, suffocating, as if the walls themselves were breathing. The table was set again. Every chair perfectly aligned. Every plate spotless, and at the far end, the empty seat. Waiting, I backed away, heart hammering. That's when I noticed the walls, they were closer. At first I thought it was my imagination, but as I pressed my back against the door, the wallpaper seemed to ripple, bulging inward inch by inch. The ceiling groaned. The floor trembled. The apartment was shrinking, folding in on itself like a lung collapsing. I tried the doorknob. Locked. My fists pounded the wood, but the sound was muffled, swallowed, as if the walls themselves were eating it. Then the whisper came. Low. Endless. From every direction at once. My name. Over and over, the light bulb above me flickered violently, then burst, plunging the room into darkness. And in the pitch black, I felt it, hands, cold, countless hands, brushing against my arms, my neck, my face, guiding me forward, toward the table, toward the empty chair. I screamed, but the sound was pulled from my throat, devoured before it could escape. The last thing I remember was sitting down, my body moving against my will, the silverware rattling in front of me as if the meal was about to begin, and then silence. When the lights came back on, the apartment was empty. The table was cleared. No sign I had ever been there at all.